I think the best advice I could give a younger artist is to realize that being an artist is a long distance run. It's not like a sprint. We're not like athletes. If you don't make it by the time you're 35, it's all over. I think David Sally said something that was so poignant. He said that art is the one thing that you could get better at as you get older. And I thought that was really brilliant. The other thing is I also think it's really important is to have friends that are other artists that you talk to and that you have some kind of camaraderie with. And that group is really kind of important because like if one of that group kind of makes it, then what will happen is that they'll go, well, who's his friends? Maybe they're good too, you know. So I think camaraderie with other artists is really important. My name is Robert Longo, and I am an artist who makes pictures. So I'm traveling around Europe. I quit the academy, my art history books in my backpack, and I'm going to look at everything I could possibly see. I go to Agrigento, where there are the incredible temples that later on I found that the biggest Greek cities were in Sicily. The view is out over the Mediterranean and nobody's there, and sun setting, and this is probably 1974, 75. And I was thinking, well, yeah, I should become an artist, really. And as I'm thinking this gigantic iguana comes crawling out of a rock, out of a hole in the limestone. Freaks me out totally. So I packed up my stuff, ran down. A few weeks later, I was in Florence and I was trying to pick up this really beautiful girl, and I'm standing underneath this statue of David that's outside a copy of it that's outside the main building, the main plaza. You know how his hand is like this with the slingshot? And there was obviously a pigeon sitting, and I was sitting directly, and this pigeon dumps right on my head, big load of shit, pigeon shit on my head. And as I'm telling this girl that I decided to become an artist, and she says, "That's good luck." It was like, the pigeon shit really was the sign. My relationship to education was somewhat difficult. I was dyslexic and I barely made it through high school. I decided I have to get myself together, so I went to a community school at night. And I just fortunately found this incredible woman named Leonora Fink. I think what I learned from her is maybe the most important thing is that art is not an opinion, it's a conviction, and I think that's something I've really lived by. Somebody I've collaborated with a lot and who I love dearly is Bill T. Jones. I've done a lot of sets for him. He's choreographed a lot of things in performances for me. He performed in a rock video I did for the World Saxophone Quartet. I mean, the people who posed for my Men in the Cities drawings, I guess you could call them collaborators. Like Cindy Sherman was like, I used her camera to photograph my first things for making Men in the City. So yeah, I mean, I think other artists are in general are your collaborators, whether you know it or not. I think like collaborating with writers, with like William Gibson and doing Johnny Mnemonic, or also, collaborating with somebody like an actor, like with Keanu Reeves. Those are kind of important to do them. Two books I thought about immediately, which I've reread a couple of times, where I pick them up and just read sentences out of them, is Moby Dick and Blood Meridian. Both these books have these insane characters of insane hubris, like Ahab in Moby Dick, and the other one has this character called the Judge. And I realized there's so much like Trump. Like Moby Dick is like the genetic code of America. But he writes it in a way where he almost, you have the feeling that the country is on its way to the Civil War. It's like, it has this kind of like inertia to it. He's basically predicting the future, which I think artists tend to have the Cassandra curse. We can see the future, but nobody wants to listen to us. music is a huge one. I play guitar, listen to it all the time, so music is a really big one. Sports is a really big one too. Writing is the other one. I'm amazed that Richard Price just finished writing a really great book, and I don't know how he did it. You know, it's like, how do you keep it organized? It's just like mind-blowing. I would like to think that maybe the fact that I've elevated drawing to like stand next to painting and sculpture. One of the reasons why I made drawings was when I kind of emerged as an artist, a lot of us were doing photographs, videos, performances, you know. Drawing seemed to be this medium that kind of fell through the cracks, was like always in the basement of museums and brown rooms, and they were always little, and the idea, could I take this medium and make it compete with painting and sculpture? And now, to this point, my drawings, to call them drawings is a bit ridiculous. They're on the scale of, you know, paintings, and I just like to call them pictures in that sense. Historically, it's Caravaggio and Rembrandt for sure. Pollock had a huge influence on me. Richard Serra had a huge influence. Walter Di Maria is someone that I just admire greatly. And Jannis Kounellis, which I thought was really great. I mean, Kounellis was incredibly important because I read this interview with him where he was talking about his development as an artist, and he decided to work towards affection. And for me, it was like, I was in this big group show called Pictures in 1977, and I had 4 or 5 different pieces in it. This one piece called The American Soldier got enormous amount of attention in the press. I remember that thing that Kounellis said, work towards affection. So what happened is I basically put down everything else, and I focused on that. And Men in Cities, that series came out of that. And that was a beginning point for where everything kind of happened. So reading that article about Kounellis where he's saying work towards affection was really important. I think as an artist, it's really important that you listen to your audience. As artists, we're blind. We can't see how you see what we make. And getting feedback from other people is really important. And I was really lucky to have this show, the picture show, where Douglas Crimp wrote about my work at a very young age, and kind of like, wow, so that's what I'm doing. I lived in Paris during the 80s, towards the end of the 80s. I was one of those artists that kind of got blamed for the 80s. And I remember seeing the Raft of Medusa. It's a painting about a horrible tragedy that happened to these people on Raft that became a political disaster. And what was interesting about the painting is that Géricault chose to not show. He could have showed the people ate each other, they were fighting with each other. You know, there was all this stuff. The painting kind of like balances between hope and despair. It gives me kind of like courage to keep on doing what I'm doing. It's a great lesson in how to make a great picture, for sure. And for something so horrible, it's such a beautiful painting.